The anti-American government of Iran is escalating its global challenge to this country and U.S. interests in this hemisphere. And Iranian agents are financing, equipping, and training insurgents in Iraq. Tehran is also moving forward with its program to build nuclear weapons despite international sanctions. Joining me now, one of the world's leading authorities on Iran, its rising nuclear and terrorist threat, Alireza Jafarzadeh. He's the author of the important new book, The Iran Threat and the Coming Nuclear Crisis. He was the first to bring the true extent of Iran's nuclear program to the world's attention. It is good to have you with us.
It's a great pleasure to be on your show, Lou.
This book, this is actually your first interview on this book. You're just out today.
Absolutely, yes.
Well, we're delighted to have you here. It is certainly, if nothing else, extraordinarily timely. Let's go straight to the issue. Iran is moving ahead despite UN sanctions, somewhat tepid, some would say, but nonetheless sanctions. What do you expect to be the end result?
I think ever since Ahmadinejad took office as the new president of the Iran regime, and I've discussed in details about his mission, his plan, he has been intent in getting Iran its first nuclear bomb at any cost.
Right.
So he's not going to buckle, he's not going to back down on his country's plan to get the nuclear bomb. And he's going to defy the international community. He just started installing as many as 3,000 centrifuge machines in Natanz.
As that report came out, 3,000 centrifuges, generally considered to be adequate to create one weapon at least within the next year. The United States has limited ability to respond. Europe is not responding at all. The United Nations, with the support of Iran by both Russia and China, there's very little that we could expect to be done, right?
Well, when it comes to the international community, I think it was very important to have a resolution at the Security Council. Not that because it will solve all the problems, but it lays a very important foundation for other measures to be followed up. I think it's very important to ride along the Security Council resolution. Political pressure is imposed on Iran and strike at the Achilles heel of Ahmadinejad, which is its internal situation. There were some 4,000 internal situation inside the country.
Right.
There were some 4,000 anti-government demonstrations in Iran the past 1 year.
But
that needs to be
we've been hearing
exploited.
this for years, that there is dissent, that the Khatami, the Khomeini, the Ahmadinejad is working on really borrowed time because of a rising upsurge and a young culture that is pro-democratic.
Well, you saw the Shah with all his military might. After 37 years of rule, he was eventually wiped out by the Iranian people. There is a limit.
Believe me, I'm the last person to underestimate the popular will in any nation, but I am confounded if I can find any evidence of this anti-radical Islamist government, any rejection of it within Iran.
Well, there's tremendous rejection against Ahmadinejad. As I said, when he spoke at the university in Tehran, in Amir Kabir University, just last month, despite all the pressure by the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, the students who stood up, they shouted Ahmadinejad out of the student hall. There were
but I would
riots
just say to you that within this nation, when you hear the name George W. Bush at a university, you would think there were a revolution underway here as well.
Well, this is very different because in the case of Iran, those students, once arrested, they could be tortured and executed. There were riots down south in Khuzestan province, in the Kurdish area. There were various riots in Tabriz, northwest Iran. In Tehran, the capital, bus drivers were on strike. So this is something that we have never seen in this scale before.
Let's be hopeful, but at the same time, forgive me, I'm also very skeptical. The idea that the United States has any leverage whatsoever over Iran right now, and more bluster and more threats against a nation roughly 3 times the size of Iraq, in which we now have committed with the additional troops, would be about 150,000 American troops, without glaring success over the course of what has been almost 4 years of warfare. How effective, how significant is U.S. military power in the equation of Iran and its thinking?
Well, I think there's a big difference between Iran and Iraq, not only in terms of the size and the population, but the overall strategic impact, the population in Iran, the very defined population that you really didn't have in the case of Iraq, a very organized opposition that exists in Iran. This is the same opposition that revealed all the major nuclear sites of Iran. This is the very same opposition that revealed the terrorist network of the Iranian regime. You did not have such a situation in the case of Iraq.
Correct.
And I think this is something that has not been exploited before by the United States and the international community.
Now, the entrance of Ahmadinejad into Central and South America, hooking up with Hugo Chavez, Evo Morales, Bolivia. What are we to make of this? What should be the U.S. response, if any?
I think Ahmadinejad is taking any opportunity that he's facing to build a coalition against the United States, because he's facing a tough situation down the road. He's concerned what's going to happen at the Security Council. He's concerned what the rest of the countries are going to do. So it doesn't matter whether they're Islamic countries or there are countries in the Middle East, even the communist countries he goes to, tries to build a coalition against the United States because he wants to protect a very chaotic situation that he faces down the road.
And the idea, let's go back to the idea that in the Middle East we have to consider two possibilities right now, actually a third. One is that there is phased withdrawal, as the Democrats are urging, that there is a escalation, as the president seems headed toward, or the possibility of a military conflict with Iran. What do you see as the outcome of the direction in which we're headed right now, with these three clear choices at least presenting themselves to us?
I think the military option is not really a viable option. I don't think anyone is seriously thinking about that. But I think whether people would go with the surge or the withdrawal, the important thing is that you have to realize what the real problem in Iraq is. As I showed in the book, the main problem in Iraq is the Iranian regime's involvement, supporting the extremist
groups. The U.S. military says categorically that Iran is the leading killer of Americans in Iraq.
Well, if that's the case and that's established, which it is, then you have to confront that. You have to confront the Iranian regime's involvement in Iraq. That has not been done so far. There are 32,000 of the Iranian agents operating in Iraq.
How many?
32,000 on the payroll of Tehran. Iran has built a network of
So what should be the U.S. response?
I think the U.S. response should be to tell Tehran that any of your agents we arrest, we're going to hold them responsible. Every single military presence of the Iran regime, such as this center in Erbil, needs to be shut down, and Tehran needs to be held responsible. At the same time,
the nuclear facility, is that?
I'm not talking about the nuclear facility. I think that's off limits. I think we'll forget about the military operation.
This is getting awfully complicated because the United States seems to be at the limit of its effective power right now in Iraq. Yet at the same time, to urge a confrontation with Iran that is hollow without the capacity to bring the military to bear, I'm lost as to what the United States leverage would be.
I think it would be a hollow threat if you only talk about the military option, that the mullahs know it's not going to happen, and if you only talk about negotiations, that the mullahs are going to win. The third option, which is reaching out to the Iranian people, empowering the Iranian opposition, who are already calling for regime change in Iran, this is the option that the United States need to pursue. And this is something that has not been done.
Alireza Jafarzadeh, he is the author of the brand new book, The Iran Threat, and President Ahmadinejad and the Coming Nuclear Crisis. A very important read. We thank you for being here. Wish you all the best.
Great pleasure to be on your show, Lou.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up next.